What's one thing that people are generally surprised to find out about you? Nandini.
Age.
Today we have people from diverse backgrounds of private equity, investment banking and consulting. So our first guest is Nandini.
So if you are the youngest member in the team, you are called as CFO of the team.
Next guest, Mukund, who's working right now with TrueNorth.
The way you deal with the company after you make the investment also makes a whole lot of difference.
And the other guest, which is my dear friend.
When I speak to a lot of juniors who are trying to get into investment banking, they typically ask me, what's your work hours like? I mean, that's given, right? I mean, if you're not ready to work for 12 plus hours, it could be 12 to 18, it could be somewhere between that. But 12, I think 10 to 12 is a bare minimum that you need to work.
I think the work-life balance bit, right, is also something that one needs to think about.
Indian education system is, until school, you're not, your schooling education is not very thought-oriented, right? Or thinking-oriented. It's more process-oriented.
And you get a rank, one hand, HUL rejected. Rejected.
It's like a huge pressure.
And HUL rejected me. Mukund, what are your future plans? Work, marriage, kids, early retirement?
ये बहुत serious होने वाला है.
So today we have people from diverse backgrounds of private equity, investment banking and consulting. So let me introduce each one of them. So our first guest is Nandini, who's working right now in GIC and previously worked with BCG. Next guest, Mukund, who's working right now with TrueNorth, which is another private equity firm. And the other guest, which is my dear friend, whom I worked with in KPMG, he's working right now in Ambit, which is an investment banking firm. Let's kick off things by each one of guests giving their intro about where they come from, their early days, how they've worked in different fields. So Nandini, let's start with you, who has the best achievement to age ratio. So let's go.
I don't think age is the right metric to measure it. But yeah, so I come from a city called Murena. It's in Madhya Pradesh. I have done my entire schooling from there, like right from nursery to my actually CA as well. So I have completed my CA through online coaching. So I was studying from home only. For completing my articleship, I shifted to Delhi. So I've done my 3 years of articleship from PwC. I started my first job right after CA with BCG. I worked there for 18 months. And now I'm currently working with GIC in the private equity domain.
Got it. Understood. Next, let's go with Mukund.
Yeah. So I originally come from Bhilwara, Rajasthan. Did my schooling there. And then post-12th, I think similar to her and all of us, moved to pursue CA and to do articleship. So I came to Mumbai. Then after CA, I did a brief stint of investment banking at O3 Capital and then went for an MBA from IIM Ahmedabad. I graduated last year and then I joined a private equity firm called TrueNorth. So it's been around 1.5 years since I've been at TrueNorth. And there I look at investments in consumer and healthcare.
Perfect. Let's go with Manthan.
Yeah, so I originally come from Surat, Gujarat, and I did my early schooling over there. I think started till 12th, and in fact, even IPCC I completed in Surat. And I think post that, I came to Mumbai for my articleship. As you mentioned, we were together in KPMG in the deal advisory tax practice. Post clearing, then I joined an investment banking firm called Ambit. I think in the startup space. I think since then I've been over there. So it's been a long journey here in Mumbai. I think approximately 6 to 7 years. I think all of us would have spent that long journey here. And good journey so far.
I think some small town side. Mumbai. So I think I'm in Bombay from 2014. I came for undergraduation and then...
Because I ended was also.
Okay, so first idea is to understand जो भी आप field में हो, what exactly it does. So let's start Manthan जैसे कि what is investment banking and what you do over there.
Right. See, investment banking in simple terms is if any company wants to raise capital, right? Let's maybe take a even smaller example. If a family, there are family businesses, right? So all our businesses usually need capital. So traditional businesses usually take more of bank debt, right? You appoint a chartered accountant or you take help from someone to raise that capital. Usually our father's business and all, they usually take bank debt. Replace that with an institutional, a large company, right? And they need the two types of capital. One could be equity and debt capital. investment banking would be both. It would help you raise debt capital, or it would primarily help you raise equity capital. I am part of equity capital raise practice. Moreover, I am in the private side, so I don't work with public listed companies. I work on the private side. I work with startups very specifically, as I mentioned, mostly in the growth stage startups. So help them connect with the investors. We are like, investment banking is like a facilitator. So a lot of people have this misconception that investment banking means you invest capital in companies, which definitely is not the case. I'm sure a lot of people in the young days think that investment banking, or maybe the term is a little misleading, that you actually invest capital, which is not the case, right? So we are more facilitators. We help the companies, we help the founders connect with the right set of investors, and we facilitate that with fundraising capital. So we work with founders to prepare a set of collaterals. How do you pitch to an investor? How do you position your company in the market? What are the right set of projections that you need to go with? And then the discussions happen with the investors, the negotiations happen, and then the deal closure or money in bank happens. So that entire process end to end is coordinated. Let's say we are the coordinators of the entire fundraising journey for any company.
And you make money by charging a fee to that, like how much is it?
Largely, I think majority cases, it's like a success fee model.
Correct.
So if you're able to, let's say for example, help you raise 100 crores, it would be like 2 crores, 3 crores, depending on the negotiation.
Yes. Got it. Understood. And as you said, investment banking invest nahi karta, but these days a lot of investment bankers are also cutting their fees into equity. I don't know if it's happening with Ambit on.
Yeah, so not in my firm, but it usually happens on the early stage side. Because if it's a startup or early stage company, maybe 50 lakhs of fees might not make a lot of difference for you. तो आप बोल रहे हो ठीक है उसको equity में करूँगा, रख लो, maybe 3 years down the line I might make a 10x money over there. Then it might make a lot of sense. Yeah, I think some banks do that, but I think that's more on a personal level. But I think mostly in professional capacities, people take their own money out of that. To give us a success fee model, yes, we'll keep it to us.
Let's go with consulting. So Nandini, I want you to cover consulting. I know you are in private equity, but let's cover the consulting with you. How's life of consultant like apart from traveling, PPTs, and staying in 5-star hotels?
I don't think anything's left out.
Okay, so maybe I'll cover how does a typical day look like for a consultant, and I would exclude the hotel and the traveling part. So when you start your day, usually for me, whatever I've seen, it starts with the huddle call. So in the huddle call, the entire team would come and you would tell what you are going to do throughout the entire day. And then throughout the day, you would be interacting with the clients, your team, you would be doing your research, etc. And PPT would be a part of it. PPT is like an essential part of consulting. Like, I don't think consulting can exist without the PPT, because I think PPT is a very expressive way of communicating your thoughts, like visuals and all. And so and in the evening, there might be another stand-up wherein you tell, okay, this is what we decided to do and this is what we have done so far. And day doesn't end at 6 or 7, depending upon the timelines and everything. You might end up working at 10 or 12, but there are times when you would be going for team parties with your team, and then there might be some farewell parties going on. Then Saturday, Sunday also. So let's say if your case is beyond 3 months, or let's say 6 months, then there's a concept called CTO, which is case team offsite. So you go for like the offsite only with your team. So one is the entire company's offsite, but this is only your case team offsite, so that people can know each other, they can better interact with each other. That's more fun because it's like the closed group and you know each other. So actually you are enjoying the pool games, the parties, etc. And so if you are the youngest member in the team, you are called as CFO of the team.
What CFO?
CFO stands for Chief Financial Officer, but he or she is that person who has to take care of food, who has to take care of travel for the entire team. And let's say, so consulting...
It's called Chief Fun Officer.
I don't remember when I asked. So some people call it as chief food officer as well.
Okay.
So context wise, so I was the junior member in the team since I joined then.
I think you'll be junior member everywhere.
That's why she left, I think. मुझे plan करनी पड़ने वाली है.
Well offset मैंने plan किया था. And it's like you have to really think कि किसके लिए क्या खाना order करना है. You have to know preferences, etc. But actually, the experience of organizing that offsite was good. I've never organized anything before, like end to end. So सबका travel arrangements, legit you have to see कि कौन कितने टाइम पे पहुंच रहा है और कौन सा क्या उसको मैप करना है और किसके साथ मैप करना है.
That's also project, consulting project है.
Yeah. So one of my managers told me that consider it as one of a module. It would be like a KPI for you during feedbacks. I was like, okay. So,
But what exactly your projects are like? मतलब consulting में आप करते क्या हो? Like you don't have to give the names of the company,
Yeah.
but क्या करते हो projects क्या है आपके?
Okay, so let's say a company comes to us and say, okay, we want to enter into a new market. Then firstly, there are two types of consulting projects, strategy and implementation. One is, okay, company comes to us and say, okay, I want to enter into a market. Tell me whether I should enter or not. So it's like more like a strategy thing.
Let's say इसमें example दे देते हैं. I don't know if it's your client. IKEA को इंडिया में आता तो they did a lot of consulting कि market study करके बताओ whether it makes sense IKEA to enter into India.
True. So उस केस में मार्केट स्टडी में वी वुड डू द मार्केट रिसर्च कि कितना बड़ा मार्केट है. वी वुड अंडरस्टैंड द कस्टमर सेगमेंट्स. सो फॉर एग्जांपल IKEA में द फर्नीचर इज नॉट वेरी कॉस्टली एंड इट्स लाइक यू कैन द मॉडल इज लाइक यू कैन रिप्लेस इट in the list like 3 or 4 years, 2 or 3 years,
correct.
right? So then we need to understand the customer segment कि वो customer segment इंडिया में है या नहीं है, and if that customer segment exists, then वो customer segment का age group क्या है, who are these people, where do they spend,
Correct.
where do they go, then geographical mapping etc. So one part would be understanding the customer. Then of course attractiveness of the market. So for example अगर IKEA business में enter करता है, what would be the expected growth, what would be the expected EBITDA margin, and how much they can expect to earn, or they can expect to actually sell in the next 4 to 5 years. So we do the entire market research, market study, and of course on the qualitative aspect as well. So for example regulatory aspects, अगर वो इंडिया में आएंगे तो क्या क्या regulations है, what all thing they do need to take care of, etc. So ये पूरा market is usually ये वाले जो projects होते हैं वो 1 या 1.5 महीने के होते हैं. We complete our work within like 1 or 2 months, and उसके बाद if they agree, okay, we want to enter into this market, then we might be selling on the follow-on case. Okay, we would also help you in the implementation. It's like a vulnerability.
Got implementation have been a lot recent for consulting firms, or it was there from long? I don't know because.
So I think it varies. So if we talk about McKinsey, it's more around strategy, but like BCG is more into implementation, and these big 4 firms, they are also more into implementation. So yeah, and for me, like I have worked more on strategy cases. So I was always inclined कि मुझे implementation करना है. And then when I speak to people who are doing implementation cases, and they're like, नहीं strategy cases was out of fun. I'm already the senior on the other side. But for me, it's like in implementation. Okay, आपने plan बना लिया, but many times the plan doesn't work. Like you face those practical challenges during implementation. So I have seen like 1 or 2 months of implementation on a case, and it was like more fun for me. Okay, जो लिखा रहा है, now I'm seeing it happen.
Whether it works or not.
Whether it works.
Together.
Yeah. So let's say कोई idea दिया and it's working. You can tell your friend, bro, I give this idea. See, it's working.
Correct. Okay, let's move on to the most sophisticated people, to the private equity. Mukund, help us explain what is private equity and what do you do?
No, I think consultants are the most sophisticated, but so private equity in simple terms, right? Like you invest in listed companies, there's that class of investments. Similarly, investments in private companies is the overall pool of private equity. And it's a large opportunity because if I tell you that, say, if in India, you take sizable listed companies, right? There are only 500 of them. Say revenue of more than 500 crores. There'll be like 500 odd companies. If you take the equivalent number in the private or unlisted market, that is at least 10 times the number of listed companies. So that's the size of the opportunity.
Correct.
And so the structure is that there are two sets of parties. You have LPs and GPs. LPs are the investors who provide the capital, and GPs manage it for the LPs.
Correct.
And you are investing in private companies. So on one end, you have a large opportunity which you are accessing. And on the other end, to investors who have a portfolio, some part of it is invested in equity, some part in debt. So within the equity, it's largely listed, but they would want a certain pool to be in
Private
asset class which is private, wherein your returns might be higher, but there are additional risks like liquidity and liquidity.
Got it. And what is your day like in a private equity firm?
Right. So broadly, there are two things. There are two main functions that we do, right? One is sourcing, wherein at all times for the sector that you are responsible for, or in some cases, a person might be responsible for multiple sectors. You have to sort of think through and see which companies do you want to actively pursue, what is your shortlist, and you try and engaging with those companies to see which ones can be relevant deals for you. And the other part is wherein you've already identified a company and there's a live deal or a live fundraising happening in that company and you're interested in that. You work on that project to try and see if you can, make that investment at an agreed price.
Right.
So these are the two broad functions. So typical day would be some split between these two functions, depending on what's the state of the market, what kind of deals are we working on. So depending on all that, it will be one of these.
And a lot of deals come through investment banking only? Like Manthan deal lekar aayega.
I'm sure banker deals take a lot of time to clear through. A lot of, I think, direct sourcing, I mean, you would know.
Yeah.
So mix.
Yeah, there's a mix, obviously, but all said and done, I think most of the deals even today happen through bankers. But the share of deals which are happening on a proprietary basis, wherein you are just approaching companies without bankers, that share is on the rise.
Why is that so?
Because with a lot of data that you have today, you can go and actively see which companies might be of interest to you and you can go and actively approach them. So everyone has that data. Everyone knows that in this sector, these are the top 10 companies. These are the most interesting ones. So if you know it already,
Start talking to them.
So
Got it. Understood. So I just want to understand, because you're on the investing side, how do you decide on investing in any company? कोई भी deal आया, how do you invest? So let's say Manthan एक deal लेके आ रहा है. He has given you the projections and all. First thing you'll do, projections को half कर दोगे. Look at the
That's the bias we try to break.
This is a joke you always make. But investment, because in personal life also you have to make your investment. Everybody has to invest their capital somewhere.
correct.
What's your strategy at looking any company?
Right. So that question has a long answer attached to it.
Yeah.
But on Manthan, in the Manthan joke that you made, I would not even look at the projections in the first glance. Right? I would look only at historicals.
Correct.
Right side of the sheet, I would completely ignore. But see, broadly, there are 4 areas that you need to look at while evaluating any business. One is the market itself. And I think Nandini gave some sense on how to evaluate a market.
Correct.
It's largely how big is the market, what's the growth, what are the growth drivers, and what's the supply side like, how's the competitive situation, entry barriers and things like those. Can a company create a competitive advantage in that market? Second, you look at the company itself. How is that done?
Over there.
How well has it performed and demonstrated execution capabilities? And how is the company positioned in the market after you understand the market? The third thing you understand, which is very important and maybe underappreciated, is the leadership team. Because a good leadership team makes the entire difference in a given market. So you try and see, is the leadership team stable? Are the roles well defined? Is there enough focus on governance? And are the key people really the ones that you would want to back?
Correct.
And the last, obviously, is pricing. So you would want to buy good assets at good prices. You would not want to overpay.
Correct.
So I think that's the approach that at least we follow at True North and a lot of other people follow, that you try to look for very high quality assets and you pay reasonable prices.
I think
That's in one line the summary of it.
got it. But you do look at projections, not of investment bankers, but looking projections. So
Yeah, absolutely.
And how do you value company? Just a brief, if you can tell.
Sure. So the fourth part of this is the
Pricing,
pricing, right? Pricing. You need to do some kind of a pricing. See, ideally, the way we are late stage investors, is to ideally think that, okay, in 4 or 5 years, what is the near-term visible profitability? And visible is an important word here because people can do all sorts of projections. So visible and reasonable profitability 4 or 5 years down the line. What's that number? And what's a reasonable exit multiple to it that I can apply? For exit multiple, you'll ideally look for companies in the same space, not only the valuation today, but historically what's been the range of valuations, so that you take a decent number out of that range and not take something at the peak of the cycle. And if there is no such business similar to it, you try to look for proxies, right? If I'm looking at an online retail business, I would ideally look at established retailers and where they have been trading at. And I would try to see, will the margin profile be a bit different for an online player versus offline, and I'll make adjustments to it. But so you look at comparable players, what's been the long-term prices of those comparable players, and based on that, you apply an exit multiple and see today what's the price.
Got it. Understood.
That's, I mean, a very simple way to put it, but yeah, obviously you will triangulate it through DCF and all that. All that is triangulation, but this is the one principle methodology that one can follow.
Got it. Understood. So let's talk about some blunders you have made while working anywhere. Like if you can remember and share your experiences. Maybe it can be your current experience or articleship. Articleship में बहुत किए होंगे.
I think that would be a long list.
कोई भी if you can remember. Well, of course we talk a lot about अच्छा काम किया गया, but हाँ blunder again how it was handled. That's another important thing. डाक पड़ी है क्या पड़ा है.
Yeah, I'll have to think about it.
Yeah.
I think small blunders though we make like on a very frequent basis, right?
Modeling वगैरह थे assumptions.
Some mistake,
Very similar.
some problem. Maybe sometimes you're in a hurry, you don't end up checking the thing twice or thrice and you end up making a mistake. So I think those kind of blunders are there. I think during my articleship, I remember one thing is that all the seniors, right, they used to put in a lot of pressure that padhai ka mat bhulna while you're working, don't ignore studies and all that. So I used to, there were phases wherein, I was not the most, say, focused person on my articleship. I was just doing what was required of me, which I feel was a blunder in a way, because today I don't think in the same way. So maybe in that phase, since there were those other dynamics, we were not maybe serious enough about work and what we were doing. There were those phases.
Nandini, anything?
Yeah. So during consulting only, I made a blunder while market sizing. So, but it's like my module, it was not presented that day as such, but we figured it out like just before the meeting. So somehow.
What was this blunder like? You estimated
it's-
more or less?
I think it was less,
अच्छा.
something like that.
अच्छा. Then the complete changes. नहीं आना चाहिए आपको इस market में. Understood. Manthan, कुछ याद आ रहा है?
I think blunders don't know, but I think small errors that keep happening. And I think you were mentioning on modeling and all. I think even when we make pitch decks and all, I think errors happen when you're not like thinking more comprehensive. I think that's when and when you, I think whenever you stick to the role or the what is expected to you, I think that's when errors will happen. If you think maybe one level above, let's say if you're presenting it to any founder, or maybe not even founder, internally if you're presenting to a director or a partner, maybe if you put yourself into those their shoes and what would they think, then your spectrum of error will reduce very significantly, because as long as you're thinking only as per your role, I'm sure you'll make errors, because your thinking is very limited, right?
Yeah.
But if you think from a partner or director's view, that's
And you learn along the way कि आपका senior आपको क्या पूछने वाला है.
correct.
And that's what I keep hearing from a manager as well, because we are so focused in our calculations and all that we forget the bigger picture.
Correct.
Like, why are we doing this?
So next question is, how does roles and responsibilities change as you grow in your organization, current organization? I know you have worked very little abhi tak, but when you see your seniors, how does that change? How does your work changes? Because whenever you're joining organization, for me, one consideration is how can I reach to the top? And do I want to be there or not? Then only I'll stay in that organization, otherwise I'll look at something else. So I want to understand, Nandini, let's go with you. How do you see this?
So, like, currently it's been only 3 months at GIC, but the way I see people growing on, I would say if I differentiate between the roles and responsibility of someone, let's say at the top -1, -2, then I think, so currently I'm an analyst. So if I look at the duties or responsibilities of an AVP or a VP, then I would divide into 2 levers. One is the accountability. So of course the accountability increases. You are not actually doing more of execution work. You have resources to do that. But then like you have to think at a broader level. You have to think from a lot of perspectives as an investor, but also from the client, your investee point of view. That, okay, if I am the investee company, how would I think about it? And then the second part is more interaction, or I would say face time with the leadership. Like the management of the company, and even internally also in the private equity funds or in any company, since we all are working in MNCs. So like there are some global people, there's some global leadership who we are accountable to. So at the entry level, you don't have much interaction with them, but as you grow up in the organization, you interact with them. You have to like actually justify, okay, why did you do this? Why did you make this investment? Or why did you choose this project, etc. So I think seeing the bigger picture and of course interacting with
ultimately you're also responsible for saying yes or no to the investment.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, in fact you are being asked like, do you want to take are you satisfied with this opportunity? What's your take on this?
So even when I was working in private equity, I was the junior, but first thing was asked to me whether you will invest your money or not.
Yeah.
That's the most
That's the constant question.
I was good about this investment. Yeah.
Then I think that makes you think more. When you're working in any other deal, you'll think कि first question तो अपन को ही आने वाला है. You have to research properly. So Mukund, how do you see your journey?
No, I think in line with what she said, I think two things that I've seen that people at senior level, when I see partners in my organization, the two things that are really different from them, one is accountability, right? As you said, let's say we are making an investment. I was the one who did the work. And I was the one who was asked this question, whether you will invest or not. I made a thesis, yes, we should invest. He agreed to it. That's a big thing. But if he agrees, then it's all on him. Tomorrow, if that investment does well, he'll get the credit. Maybe I'll also get the credit. But if it doesn't do well, he has to take the onus of it. I think that's the single most important thing. Because in investments field, maybe for a small period, you will be judged on your intellect, how you're thinking, your network and things like those. But if you're looking at any person who's been there for a decade plus,
Correct.
all they'll be judged on is the outcomes of their investments, right? So that's a very big change that happens as you grow up the ladder. Second is people management, right? At a junior level or even at a mid level, you're doing limited people management. Maybe you're managing your own work or someone who works alongside.
Correct.
But at a partner level, you're dependent on people.
Correct.
So your rapport with them, not only within the organization,
Across.
when you're scouting for new investments, how do you interact with them? How is your relationship with them and your existing companies? Which is also very important because the way you deal with the company after you make the investment also makes a whole lot of difference.
Correct.
Whether they consider, whether they have that comfort level with you or not, or whether they consider you a burden. You're an investor. So that also makes a whole lot of difference. So I think people management and just the exponential rise in accountability, those are two big changes that happen as you take up a senior role. But yeah, you are right on the point that you said. This question keeps constantly coming. So tomorrow, if a deal that will come to us, the first thing that I have to do with the limited information that I have to form a view on that business. Which is one thing that I really like about investing because you're forced to
think.
Right? And in maybe in banking, again, you require a deep understanding of the business in order to sell the business. But no one forces you or no one is pointing the finger to you to, summarize your view on the business.
It's always positive.
It has to be positive. Here you have to, people are actually forcing you to just say your view. In that process, you keep forming more views, your decision-making abilities become better.
What you're thinking and
And ultimately, when you're investing, you are saying no more than yes.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So you have to, when you're saying yes, then a lot of things you have to make sure that these are right.
you have to rationalize a lot.
Because the first thought for any investor is I don't want to invest. Now I want to see why I want to invest, whether this is right, that is right. Everything takes mark, then we go forward.
That's the right approach.
That's the right approach. That's the approach.
And the cost of false positives and false negatives are very different in, I think, investing.
And how does Manthan for you look in the banking side?
My lens of viewing things is very different from Nandini and Mukund because they are on the private equity side. I think investment banking, it's more execution work. So maybe I think of roles across the organization 3 levels. Right? First is execution, then the mid managerial, and third is more directional and relationship roles. Right? Execution, when you are at the start of your career at any investment bank, it's all about execution. Right? It's all about understanding how to pitch decks work, how do you think about businesses, how do you present them into pitch decks and financial models. Right? A translation of a business story into some tangible PPTs or Excel works. Then as you grow, it becomes managerial, right? Managerial, like you get businesses and then you have to make sure that execution happens at the junior team level, right? Obviously, it's execution plus managerial. It's a sliding scale.
Correct.
You will never get out of execution, right? And then as you grow, it's execution plus management plus directional as well, right? Because at the top level in any investment bank, and investment banking is relationship business, right? Of late, I mean, the startup sector hasn't really evolved that much, but if you look at historically, any investment bank, it's all about relationships, right? The founders of the earlier older investment bankers, they just used to meet founders of different companies, right? On an occasional basis, on a regular basis, or maybe depending on the timing of fundraise and all. So for any senior management or senior role that you have to put your shoes into, right, in for an investment bank, you have to ensure that you're able to manage those relationships well. Ensure that the timing of those relationships or the touch points are more frequent, because you have to be at the top of the recall for those founders. You have to ensure that work is getting done, obviously, because you have your managers and the analysts and associates who are executing, but ultimately you're responsible, right? As both of them said, accountability is the highest at the highest level, right? So to ensure that work's getting done, and work's getting done in the right way. So right work's getting done. So execution also, you're only responsible. I think that there's a sliding scale. At the lowest level, it's just execution. As you move up the ladder, it's execution plus management. And as you move at the top level, it's execution plus management plus direction or relationships. I think that's how I view more.
Well, answer on this. Okay, got it. So my next question is how to choose a right career, because everyone has chosen something in where we are right now. And there'll be a lot of people in 20s, early 20s, even we were at that stage कि पता नहीं क्या करना है. We have done CA कर लिया है, but अभी क्या करना है नहीं पता था. I tell you myself कि मेरे साथ क्या होता, जब I cleared CA, मेरे को पता नहीं था PE होता क्या. It was just a luck कि first time a PE firm came to campus placement. And I was like, एक ये सबसे अलग कंपनी लग रही, बाकी सब तो है, ये एकदम अलग कंपनी है. I went on to search कि exactly PE करता है क्या. 2-4 वीडियोस देखे होंगे, this is the best thing I can get into. मतलब investing is a dream. मतलब आपको स्टार्टअप्स में जाना है कि you get a holistic knowledge. Of course, you don't get deep execution, नहीं पता चलता है, पर वो पता था कि मार्केट में क्या वर्क कर रहा है. That's how I went into the interview and cleared it, and I think that was the best 2.5 years for me. And then I shifted to startup because again I wanted to be on the execution side also of the business. But how do you have decided to be in this industry, and how should people decide if they're thinking? And what's the process like into getting each of where you have been? Nandini, you start. You can give us background about how you got into consulting.
Yeah, so like you, when I became CA, I was not very much aware what is consulting.
I still remember Nandini का message आया था कि these are the options, and काफी लोग तो hire भी नहीं कर रहे. Like in consulting में काफी लोग उस time भी hire नहीं करते. मेरा भी हुआ था कि 1-2 नहीं कर रहे थे. What should we do? So let's go.
Yeah, so like then there is a program, like BCG Virtual Consulting Internship Program. Like anyone can do it. So I just took that. I got some sense of consulting. And then when I got shortlisted in BCG and Bain, I was speaking to buddies, I was speaking to people who were working there, and I got some sense of consulting. But taking a step back, when I became CA, or I would say before I was about to become CA, one thing that I decided was, so for me, choosing something has like 2 steps. One is eliminating what you don't want to do.
Correct.
And the second thing is, okay, you have a lot of options and you have to prioritize. Like among a lot of options, even I can't make a choice, okay, this is the best. You just have to prioritize. So for me, it was like, okay, I don't want to continue in my existing profile. So I was in the statutory audit. And for me, like there was a saturation point. I was like, I want to go more into business side. And I think it happens with a lot of CAs. Like after we became CA, like नहीं finance से कुछ थोड़ा अलग करने का try करना है, फिर side में execution में कुछ करना है. And we always think, like many times people think so. So after becoming CA, I was like, okay, this is something I don't want to do.
Correct.
Then there is a list of options. So one was leadership role, the industry leadership programs, which we call as like finance leadership programs for CA freshers, for anchors. Then another was consulting. And then, okay, at our time, PE तो कोई fund आया नहीं था, so we didn't have that PE opportunity. But there were some companies जो IB offer कर रहे थे. So I gave an interview of Kotak IB, and then I didn't hear back from them. After 1 or 2 weeks, I got to like the recruiter gave me the feedback. Then they didn't take you because they think that you are so young to handle IB fresher, and that's why. Like okay, and it happened like within 2 weeks of my results. And then there was this leadership program, HUL. And I was not selected in that. None of us from our batch was selected except one. She was working as an industrial trainee there. So yeah, that also didn't work. Then I got into...
How do you feel like
it was,
when you get a rank one and HUL rejected? Rejected.
It's like a huge pressure.
And HUL rejected me. So...
Only you both can imagine how can you win. You are.
We still in rank 1. Even you have cleared CA. You are at the top. अगर rank आया नहीं आया, clearing CA is also the big thing. And then you get rejected by this.
So जब मेरा rank 1 आया था, मतलब मैं तो ये सोच के बैठी थी, हाँ CA बन जाऊंगी और ठीक है rank आ जाएगा. But rank 1 आना was a different pressure. Like लोगों के इतने फोन आ रहे थे, लोग इतना गाइड कर रहे थे, you should go into consulting, you should go into IB, you should...
The reason why I messaged you was for this only. कि don't take pressure of people, because मेरे टाइम भी ऐसे हुआ था यार, रैंक है ठीक है, प्रेशर इतना ज्यादा, अब तुम क्या कर रहे हो, अरे यार आपने खुद ने डिसाइड नहीं किया ना,
Put into that spotlight unnecessarily.
Okay, target BCG or being target this company, you must get into
Correct.
it. I was like कि क्या हो रहा है?
बहुत pressure
So
आ रहा है।
एक तरफ मीडिया इंटरव्यूज चल रहे हैं, बहुत ज्यादा मीडिया इंटरव्यूज चल रहा है, एक तरफ जॉब इंटरव्यूज चल रहे हैं और एक तरफ आर्टिकलशिप चल रहा है। तीनों चीज कैसे मैनेज करूँ? मैं रिमेम्बर मेरा मैरिको का एप्टीट्यूड टेस्ट था, सो मैंने एक हफ्ते तक आर्टिकलशिप का कोई काम नहीं किया था आफ्टर माई रिजल्ट्स, बिकॉज टाइम नहीं था, बट उसके बाद देवर लाइक कि एंड बीइंग प्रोफेशनल आई आल्सो बिलीव दैट समथिंग इज डिपेंडेंट ऑन मी, आई शुड कंप्लीट इट, सो आई हैव टू लाइक डिवोट सम टाइम टू दैट एज वेल। सो मेरा मैरिको का एप्टीट्यूड टेस्ट 7 या 8 बजे था और मैं 6 साढ़े 6 बजे तक अपना आर्टिकलशिप का काम कर रही थी। आई डिडंट हैव नो टाइम टू क्लियर लाइक टू प्रिपेयर फॉर द टेस्ट एंड आई गिव दैट टेस्ट, बट या हाँ मतलब आई वाज नॉट सिलेक्टेड in that Marico aptitude test. So first round में वो rejection Marico है हो गया था, although I was not even keen on that opportunity somehow. And then ICA campus placement start हुआ. I think 12th या 13th of October को Accenture management consulting interview था. I made into that. And then उसके बाद there was Bain का interview. And I was rejected in the first round itself.
वो कौन पे था इंटरव्यू, कहाँ कैसे था?
हमारे सारे राउंड जूम पे हुए थे।
ओके, आई थिंक कोविड टाइम रहेगा था।
हाँ. And then the only interview that was left is BCG. So I was so much dejected. I was feeling so much dejected कि नहीं मुझे देना ही नहीं है BCG का interview. I'm like done with it, etc. And then said like मेरा कुछ लोगों ने TTs जो तब है opportunity तो interview try तो कर, you should give. Then I started preparing, but हाँ like I was feeling very much dejected and मतलब ऐसा हो गया था कि ठीक है हो जाएगा तो ठीक है, नहीं होगा तो भी ठीक है, not much hope.
Tell us what is the process like for getting into consulting, like वो interview process कैसा होता है and how do you prepare?
So they make a group, something like BCG CA hiring or Bain CA hiring, and then they share a link. So on that link you can submit a CV and there are some fields you have to fill. Once you fill those fields, they would come back with the final list of shortlisting within a week, and then you would be added to the shortlisting group.
Correct.
And then your interview would be scheduled after 4 weeks or like 3 weeks depending upon the availability. But between this process, so when you would get the email that you have been shortlisted, you would be assigned 1 or 2 buddies. So it's 2 buddies in BCG and 1 buddy in Bay. Okay. And then, so typically how it works is, okay, you call them and you try to understand from them how does the process work. They would guide you. You can refer these 3 books. This is how you can prepare. And usually since they are working, they would be available only over the weekends. So you can practice with them only over the weekends. And then after 4 weeks, your final round would be scheduled. For me, it started at 7 a.m. For me, like pure batch के लिए started at 7 a.m. in the morning. And 7 p.m. in the evening, they told us like 8 p.m. I guess. Okay, now this is the final cohort of BCG 2021. So that's how they did it. And for me, there were 4 rounds. And for everyone, those who were shortlisted, there were 4 rounds, all rounds on the same day. But it's not like common. So मेरे से पहले कुछ ऐसे में batches हैं जिसमें उन्होंने 2 round जैसे आज लिए. Then after 3 days, they are taking another 2 rounds.
Correct.
So
and these are all case studies based?
They all. So initially they start with the introduction. So let's say they would ask, okay, Nandini, tell me about yourself. Why consulting, etc. So after 2 minutes, they would be like, okay, let's start with the case interview. And then you can ask any question. But yeah, that's how it works. It's like if it's 15 or 20 minutes interview, 15 minutes for case interview, 15 or 18, and 2 minutes for your personal interview.
Got it. Okay, let's move to Mukund. How did you choose your career and what's the interview and all the process like? I did ask one thing. Salary क्या range होता था? Consulting में सबसे important लोगों के लिए वो होता है, but I think it should not be first thing you should look at when you're joining any job. But I think लोगों के लिए important है.
So at an entry level, it's like between 70 to 22, then depending upon which consulting firm you're joining. I'm talking about MBB. But yeah, for other consulting firms, it might vary.
Correct. Okay, let's move on to the P side.
Yeah. So the question, right? How do you choose a career? I think we are not at a stage where we have chosen our careers for lifetime. Even we are sort of figuring that out. We are trying and testing. That is the reality, right?
Correct.
But I think broadly the approach that I have, even going ahead, the things that I want to look at is firstly, what am I good at? Because I think that becomes a key driver in any field that you take. You can pick up any field and if you excel in it, you can do really well for yourself and you will have a good life, right? Secondly, do you enjoy doing it? And by enjoy, I think work in general might not be so enjoyable, but at least what you're learning and things like those, do you feel good about those? Yeah. And thirdly, if money is important for you, then are you getting paid enough? Right? These would be the three key factors that I would put when evaluating my career, even going ahead. So, and the second part, the reason why I said I'm still choosing, I don't know whether my capabilities are good enough for investing or not. Because to do well in investing, you need to have the right skill sets. And today I might end up, say, working on an investment. I'll get to know only 4-5 years down the line whether it was even a good investment or not. So it'll be very risky to, for me to say to someone that investing is a good career. Because how well do you do over the period will completely be a function of whether you have the ability or the personality to be the right investor. So one needs to self-reflect as to what are my strengths and accordingly choose a field is how I would suggest. For me, the reason, say, why I was very interested in a PE role when I left B school is firstly, there's a lot of learning opportunity. You're working on many businesses, and as we talked about it earlier, you have to form views on those businesses, and you learn a lot in that process. You learn deeply about industries, about different kinds of businesses, and I like doing that. So that was the single most important factor. And while doing that, you get paid enough, right? And whether, say, I have the right skill set or not, only time will tell. So that's the thing that I'm still figuring out. That was how I ended up in PE, right? In terms of the process of getting into a PE, I think typically it's a very tedious process. If I were to be very honest, there will be at least 6 to 7 rounds with different members of the team, because generally private equity funds operate with a very small team, right? Any fund that you look at will have a team of 8 to 12 people on the investments team. So an addition of a team member to that team is generally a very big decision for them, which is why they want to be very sure about it, which is why multiple people talk to you. Maybe you'll have more technical rounds in the beginning, but towards the end, it will be more around how are you thinking about your life in general, what is your personality, more HR related questions. They'll try to get a sense on. So that's the process. Maybe in the initial 2 to 3 rounds, it will be more technical, wherein you might be given a case, or you might be given a case like it is there in consulting, wherein you have to solve it.
Correct.
Or you might be given a modeling case, wherein you're given a problem and you have to prepare a financial model or a deck to present your view on that business. So those are the first 2 rounds. And then it's about, and they also try to test your past a lot, because that's the easiest way to, evaluate a person, that whatever they have done in the past, what was the level of depth, clarity, and they focus a lot on what decisions have you taken in life till now and what was your thought process around that. So they try to evaluate you based on your past experience and how well versed you are with that. They try to see whether the technicals and fundamentals are in place, and then while trying to understand you as a person, they try to see if that you are a right fit for the organization and what's required in terms of values.
Got it. Understood. So Manthan, how does investment banking work here?
In terms of the interview process, I think it's more, process oriented, that if you'll be able to understand, as I said earlier as well, that translating the business, the soft qualitative aspect and qualitative aspects into some tangible form, right? So you usually give a pitch deck test or a modeling test, right? I think those questions of those level of interviews, I think they test your technical knowledge. Beyond that, then they also test how well are you able to understand or ask the right questions, I think. And maybe I think also percolates down to PE funds as well, right? Like in investment banking as well, because if you're in the front end, right, there's a lot of interaction that happens with the management, correct? And your director or partner might not be available every single time, right? But when you're preparing a set of collaterals, you actually need to ask the right questions so that you can get the right answers or right sort of data from your management. I think then that skill also gets tested. How well are you able to think about business in general? Then they also test usually if you have tried to follow a particular sector, a particular company or industry, right? So that's a very common question in investment banking process that, let's say if it's a listed company, right? If you follow the listed sector, BFSI sector, let's say for example, or any consumer sector, for example, then they'll test your knowledge about that. How deep did you go by your research or by your interest? It might not be directly related to your line of work, but it could be a line of interest for you. So that how deep did you go? Did you understand the fundamentals of that business, right? So those questions then come along that line. Then investment banking also has one very typical question. Ability to work in long hours, right? Because that's the nature of the industry. So that question gets asked, I think, across. I'm sure that gets, whether it be a global bank or a domestic investment bank. So that's a very typical question. I think everyone says yes. Of course, that's a rhetorical question. Yeah. So, but at least there's still, I'm sure that people still ask, because maybe not in the interview. When I speak to a lot of juniors who are trying to get into investment banking, they typically ask me, what's your work hours like? I mean, that's given, right? I mean, if you're not ready to work for 12 plus hours, it could be 12 to 18, it could be somewhere between that. But 12, I think 10 to 12 is a bare minimum that you need to work. Then maybe you should not think about investment banking. I think that's the pressure that comes with this entire field. And that's been broadly the process. And it varies slightly depending on the type of role that you're applying to. If it's more private side or public side, if it's more ECM practice or a non-ECM capital fundraise practice or an M&A practice. And the question then get customized around that. But I think in investment banking, it's a lot about awareness. How aware are you about the industry around, right? Business in general, right? If not all industry, at least few industries, you need to be aware about how is business or how business models shifting, how are business performing in general in terms of their top line, bottom line, and other operational metrics. I think awareness and having a very keen mind, I think that's what's required in investment banking.
Got it. Understood. I didn't ask you about the salary part.
I was
I'm trying to skip, but I won't let you.
I was relieved for a while. No, I think it's a very wide range in PE, right? I think at an entry level in domestic funds, so I would divide this into domestic and global because global pay much more. So in domestic funds, again, there's a wide range. So at entry levels, it might be anywhere between 20 to 60, right? And then there's a bonus on top of that, which might again range. And for global funds, that entry level might be anywhere between 50 to 80.
But mind you, this is for post-MBA roles and not for pre-MBA.
Yeah, I don't know the...
Yeah,
Correct.
Yeah, good.
So you would be hired as an associate. I think udhar bhi term se to.
Yeah, so generally when you're joining before MBA, or we answer pre-MBA analyst,
Pre-MBA.
after MBA, you are an associate. Or in some cases, if you have enough experience before an MBA, you may be taken as a VP or an AVP also. It's a very complex thing which very
But again, gives an idea of the range.
But one more thing, while he was saying, which I reflected upon, I think the work-life balance bit, right, is also something that one needs to think about before choosing any career.
Yeah.
Correct.
Because everyone in life has different priorities. You need to ask yourself this question. Maybe that those priorities will change with time, right? Obviously. But maybe you need to ask yourself this, that for the next 5 to 10 years, what are my priorities in life? In terms of how much do I want to put into work? How much do I want to put into my partner, family, and friends, other interests, all that. And based on that, one should choose a career, because what might work for one might not work for another, and it's completely fine. At the end, you should be happy with what you're doing. So that work-life balance bit is also very important to evaluate before taking up any career.
Yeah.
Manthan, on the salary part,
Again, I think as Mukund was mentioning, as like in the PE funds, in the domestic, in investment banks also it varies. Domestic investment banks, I think, would pay you anywhere, but I'm just talking about fixed portion because investment banking by its nature has a lot of variable portion. But I think fixed it would be somewhere in the range of 12 to 20, the domestic banks, and the global banks would be paying somewhere in the range of 20 to 30, I guess. This again, non-MBA roles, right? Not the MBA roles. Those are quite different. So that's the range largely. I think bonuses again vary. Domestic banks usually pay between, let's say, 60 to 150, I guess. Again, the range, the spectrum is quite high. Global ones, I think, would pay somewhere in the range of 100 to 200. Some go as high as in a very good year, which were, I think, 21, 22, to 50%, 300% bonus I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think global investment banks after MBAs pay like 40 to 60 base and
60. Correct.
a bonus on top of that.
Bonus is the main element. IB में तो.
Yeah.
Once
IB में it is, yes.
in a good year, it is minimum 100. It can go up to 200, 250 as he said.
Got it. Understood. So let's move on the thoda studies and extra degrees part, because we tend to do CA and want to do other stuff also like MBA, CFA, ACCA. What's your view around that? And I think a lot of you have done a lot of other things also. Let's start Mukund with, because you have done after CA you went into for MBA. How are you thinking about that?
Yeah, it was sort of a sudden decision, but I won't go into the details of that. But say after I got the chance to evaluate whether I want to go for an MBA or not, the things that I asked myself, I think an Indian MBA, there's a lot of value to it, is how I felt about it. The reason being, firstly, say in general in our lives, right, in the normal course of our work, how many people do we interact with? How many new connections do we make? In an MBA, there's a batch size of 400 people, right? And then you have your juniors, seniors. So out of those, you might not be interacting with, say, everyone. But in all, you have a network of some 1,000 odd people that you just get very easy access to. And one might not appreciate it today, but 15 to 20 years down the line, those people are going to be leaders across industries, right? So you're getting a very quick access to a network of potential industry leaders, which I think in the normal course of my work, I do not get, right? That was one very strong value proposition. Secondly, that brand does have value, right? Because in life in general, whenever you do meetings or you're applying for something, there are hundreds and thousands others who are also doing the same thing. So there is some filtering that is done everywhere, where people evaluate you based on what you have done, the brand that you carry in terms of your MBA. So that brand thing also I feel has a lot of value.
Correct.
In terms of learning, I would say it's a mix. It's completely a function of how much learning do you want to extract out of the course, right? You might end up spending those 2 years without learning anything additional as well. But since you have to manage so many things, right? Even if you don't end up learning academically any new concepts, you do end up learning a few things. But I would still not say those are material enough to spend 2 years of your life. Right? You can do online courses and things like those to get those learnings around strategy and those areas. But in general, the way that course is structured, you have your academics part, which is very hectic in Indian MBAs, right? Because in a matter of 2 years, there are 50 courses that you have to go through, and every course has internals, externals. There's a class participation component. There are assignments, midterm assignments, and term assignments. You have to do assignments on your own. You have to do assignments with your group. All in all, there is a lot that you need to do over the period of those 2 years. So there's that very hectic academics bit. Then you have your placements, and it's very competitive and very stressful placements, the way they happen in MBAs. So you have to devote a good part of your time towards placements. Then you're also trying to enjoy your life, hang out with your friends, also take part in some clubs or other extracurricular thing that you want to do. You have to manage between a lot of things. So I think those 2 years give you that ability to really manage multiple things, and they increase your ability to handle pressure. That's definitely an improvement in myself that I felt. And lastly, purely, even if you were to, like a CA, if you were to go and see today, what can I make in terms of money after an MBA, what's the potential median salary that I can get, and what is the additional fee that I'm paying, what is my opportunity cost, I think that NPV is quite positive. The payback period is not that high. So even in terms of pure finance, you're missing out on 2 years of your career.
Yeah.
You add that salary, and the fee for Indian B schools, while it might look a lot high, which is say 20 to 25 lakhs, I think that is recovered quite quickly. You can get a student loan for that as well.
Correct.
So that is the initial fee. The reason why I'm saying it's not that high is because global MBAs are 1.5 to 2 CR is what you end up spending. So that 20 to 25 lakhs you have to spend. Say if directly after CA, normally people can get anywhere between 10 to 15 lakhs. After an MBA, the minimum that not the minimum, let me not make statement here, but on an average, you can expect 25 to 30. That jump in itself of 15 to 20 can help you recover your fee in like 3 to 4 years in a very normal scenario. So pure NPV also makes sense.
Okay.
So I had sort of evaluated that decision on these parameters, and it did make sense for me to, take out 2 years and go for it. But again, one needs to think as to what do they want to do towards the end, whether that network even has value to them or not, whether they want to work for a longer period, because this access to opportunities will only make sense if you're planning to work
in this
for at least 8 to 10 years or at least 5 to 7 years, right? If you plan to go for a business straight away, then it might not make sense. So those all questions one needs to ask. But again, the other decision that one has to make is, even if you choose to go for an MBA, whether to go for an Indian one or global one. I went for Indian because I'm very sure that I want to stay in India for the rest of my life. And that network and the Indian touch where Indian MBAs have,
correct.
I like that, and I think that has more value for me.
Got it. I think comprehensive answer.
Just one thing here, like people say that CAs do not have college life, and that's why they should, do MBA. Sometimes people say that. So do you think MBA gave back your college life?
Yeah, it does. It does. While, again, I would like to give a disclaimer on that. So for CAs, definitely it's a very good experience. It's much more than what you have done till now. You end up, when I had gone for my MBA, the initial sense that I'd gotten is, people look very professional. ये बहुत serious होने वाला. I might not end up enjoying a lot. But somehow over the period of those 2 years, I ended up making a lot of real friends who I'm still in touch with. So that was really an addition. But at the same time, the disclaimer is that when I ask my engineer friends, how would they judge their engineering college life versus MBA college life? Generally, they find that college life to be more fun because you don't have a lot of other things to do. So you're completely having fun. Here you're managing other things, but you get a decent share of fun, is how I'll put it.
Got it. Let's move to Nandini. I think you have done ACCA.
Yeah.
How do you recommend doing that course, or do you have any plans to do MBA or something? How are you thinking on that?
So on ACCA, so even like before I became CA, I always wanted to have a global degree. So that, if any time I'm shifting outside India, the degree holds value. So for example, ACCA has its value in 179 countries or so. So for me, the point of doing ACCA was that, like, since I'm already a CA, so that would be a good base for me. Since you just have to give 4 papers of ACCA, and that too, like, I gave in every single attempt. So there are like papers happen 4 times in a year. So give paper 1 in March, paper 2 in June, like that.
Okay.
So yeah, for me the point was like getting a global degree so that if anytime I want to shift outside India, the degree holds value. Now coming to the MBA part, so like he mentioned that it's a decision, the global MBA versus Indian MBA, that I'm yet to make. And actually, since past 3 weeks, I've been talking to a lot of people who have done global MBA, Indian MBA, what was their rationale, why did they go for it. But the key or the crucial factors that I would consider before making my decision would be like settling outside India or like inside. Or at least I should have plans to stay outside India like 4 or 5 years so that I can recover the cost. Unless and until I really get a good scholarship. So that's one consideration. Second would be the experience that I want. So someone told me that it's like if you go for an Indian MBA, you would be studying with Indians. If you go for a foreign MBA, there would be foreigners. So it's like your experience would be different. But many people also said that in terms of curriculum, there's not much difference. It's more like your living experience, the people who we interact with, like you're interacting with a lot of different people with different cultures, and then the culture shock is there. So one of my friends is staying in London. So they're like, you have to do everything on your own. You have to take that tube, which is like metro, to reach anywhere. So it's like a different struggle. So I also want to think like, which network do I want?
Correct.
And then third is about brand, which people say that, okay, if you go to Harvard, Wharton, it comes with a different brand. And of course, like if you compare packages, so I spoke to someone and I asked her straightforward, okay, you have done global MBA, and do you think wherever you are working currently, would it make any difference if you would have done an Indian MBA in terms of the profile and in terms of the package? And she said no. Even if I would have gone for an Indian MBA, I would be working in the same position and the same package. So for me, it won't make difference in terms of the package. But yeah, if I want to do a career switch or a profile switch, then MBA would help me. But again, whether Indian versus global, then that switching thing won't be won't be a factor to choose between global and Indian. It would be more like experience based thing. And yeah, am I ready to stay like 4 to 5 years outside India?
Got it. And also on the foreign MBA, because one of my colleague was joined in our company. She's from Harvard. She was telling me that 14 Indians were there in Harvard MBA, 12 are back in India out of that. And this is shift happening. Like people are going for MBA outside, but they want to prefer coming back in India. I think the job scale, the pay parity has also been somewhere normal.
So just coming back to India is not the only factor. See, in terms of brands, one can very straightforwardly say that Harvard, Stanford, Wharton are superior brands compared to Indian MBA brands. In terms of exposure, it is a different game altogether, right? So it's a much higher level of exposure. And thirdly, while in pay, she said that there's no difference. Right? But I think the question that you asked is if you were in the same role, the ability to get into that role is where the difference is. So I think it gives you access to some better opportunities, which you have access to through an Indian MBA itself, just becomes easier with the global.
Yeah, maybe like strategy role or something like that.
So there are trade-offs, right? It's a different it's not a straightforward call. That's what,
And like you mentioned that if you are going to stay in India, your Indian network would be helpful to you. So that's what someone also told me, that if you're going to stay in India, then of course your Indian network would be helpful.
So I think you have to somewhere make a decision and
what do you value?
What do you value? Got it. Manthan, coming to you, how do you see some other degrees, extra degrees? I think you have been doing CFA. Talk us about that, because a lot of CAs have want to do CFA. I think a lot of people ask. You will be asking a lot of people. CAs will be asking you.
Even I want to ask.
So
I think in terms of technicalities, I think CA is a complete course. I think if you have done it right, that's a very important caveat. But if you have done
with the proper articleship.
That's a work experience. I'm just saying in terms of technicalities, in terms of technical education, CA is a comprehensive course, so as to say, right? Additional courses you can think of when if you want to develop your more thinking ability, right? The way or the lens that you look at your work from which angle, right? That's one. Second, obviously, is access to opportunities. Like Mukund was mentioning, MBA gives you access to a lot more opportunities, which non-MBA might not. Similarly, roles like CFA, unfortunately, in India, for now, I think CFA roles are very limited. The way people are, the number of people who get into CFA, and that's a supply. The demand is extremely low. Correct. Right? For pure CFA roles. Obviously, if you're a CA plus CFA, or if you are an MBA plus CFA, I don't know. At that time, it might not even add a lot of value. Because CFAs are very highly technical finance course, right? I think the core requirement in India currently is in the equity research roles, right? And if you look at the equity research industry as a whole, is very small currently in India. But I think the reason why people do CFA is because to get an edge, right? Because if you look at it, like in India, the population or the supply side, you are one amongst 1,000, right? If you do CA plus CFA, you might be one amongst 100.
Correct.
It's just that it's like a signaling effect. That you could clear CFA level 1, 2, 3 best. If you clear 3 levels, that it signals to your employer that you have done something extra. You might have some extra skills. But I think fundamentally, does not make a lot of sense to do CFA along with CA. It just gives you an edge over others. I think when choosing not just CFA, I think even any other course, I think the problem with the Indian education system is until school, you're not, your schooling education is not very thought oriented, right? Or thinking oriented. It's more process oriented. Your real learning starts after school, 12. If you look, compare this to global education system, right? In a lot of these top roles also, if you see, I think I'm showing P roles and consulting roles also, you see a lot of bachelor or graduates getting into these roles. Now in India, you cannot even imagine a BCom getting into any of the BCGs of the world or any private equities, right? You would need something, some additional course, maybe a CA or an MBA for that matter. Because there the graduate degree also holds a lot of sense because you have been through that process for a longer period of time. In India, that process begins after your 12th or after your schooling. So if you believe that after CA also, if you believe that there's a shift in your thinking approach for the role that you're aiming to, If you require that, then definitely you should go for more courses. Any course that can help you change that mentality, change your thought process, and obviously that holds value for that particular field, I think you should go for it.
But a slightly different opinion, because I've also done a couple of levels of CFA. I felt that there was additional learning. I did not feel that all the learning that I got was covered in CA. At least that was my experience.
I think technicalities, as I said, it's much more technical course.
Much more technical and much more straightforward.
Straightforward also. I think.
CA, I think you, in courses like SFM, which is financial management, you end up, the concepts are few. You end up calculating it and all that, and showing that takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
There it's MCQ, they are focusing directly on whether you know the concept or not. So at least it helped me improve my conceptual clarity. But he's right in the sense that the differential edge that it had while getting access to opportunities, that is on the decline, because number of people with CFA's degree are sort of increasing. So that edge might be a bit low, but there is some learning.
So last question, then we move to a lightning round, more towards fun conversations. What are your future plans? Work, marriage, kids, early retirement? Nandini is like, I'm a kid already.
Yeah, I'm
Who
21.
wants to go first? Who wants to go first?
I should be the last, I guess.
Manthan, let's go.
Yeah, chala, I'll start with it. I'll just end at early retirement, I guess. That's the we'll skip all the levels. Just jump to early retirement.
I think you are.
But I think in more from a career perspective, I think I spent now a fair amount of time in investment banking, 2.5 years. And luckily in a very good space that I always wanted to, which is the upcoming startup space. I think I've been in sell side for quite some time. I think my plans would be to more get into more deeper levels of roles, right? And that buy side is one that gives me access to that. Being on the startup side, like you shifted, that's another role because you're in the thick of the game, right? Because you get to see things which you are selling in the investment banking. Right? So those are more medium-term goals. I think long-term would be, I think because of Marwadi background and obviously coming from business family would be to start something of my own. But that's more like a long-term thing.
I thought you would be saying Marwadi background, marriage is a pressure.
I think that began, and then I think given, I think hum sab pe, I think hamesha se rehta hai. But I think.
But what do you think of this early retirement जो trend चल रहा है? Where people think about, what's the full form?
Financially independent, retire early. Financially independent and retire. I think something sort of that. The idea is that you retire early.
What are your views on that?
Makes a lot of sense if you know how to get bored in life, right? How to get bored in life. If you're fine with that, right? If you're fine with that, so because if you, let's say you retire at 35, 40, and if you don't know what to do with your time, right? Because if you've been working for let's say 12 hours for like past 20 years, and suddenly tomorrow someone tells you now you don't have anything to do. If you have plans for that, I think then obviously it makes sense because you can get out of this grind and maybe do
what do you like?
More greener pastures that you would want to do that would not make a lot of sense from finance perspective, but more from a self-actualization perspective. But I think if you have those, if you know how to spend time alone, if you know how to spend time beyond work, if you know how to spend time with your friends and families, definitely.
And of course you build a corpus which can...
That's obviously financial independence. That's how you started.
Definition of that would be different. Someone wants this.
And again, that depends. I mean, that's the level of the lifestyle that you aspire to and that you want to maintain for the next 30-35 years. I think you discount it to the current value, and that's how that's the corpus that you have to maintain.
Yeah, modeling. Mukund, how are you thinking?
Yeah, so as I was mentioning earlier, I think at this stage I'm trying to evaluate my own skill sets, trying to get a deeper experience of investing, right? So the idea is just to keep doing that, keep trying to understand whether I'm the right fit for this industry or not. So to try and get a deeper exposure, spend some time, and then again, self-reflect on what to do next. Maybe starting something on own is one of the options, right? At some point in life. So that is on future plan. But other than this, I think other than work also, trying to focus a lot on having a good schedule in terms of fitness, in terms of taking out time to read, even other than work. Because I think when you start working in a role like investing, you realize that there's a ocean of knowledge out there and you know, like not even a drop of it.
Correct.
So try and read about things that at least I am interested in. I can't go and read everything, but at least the areas of interest I'm trying to read more on, trying to take out some time for fitness. Yeah.
Got it. Nandini, what are you thinking?
I'm just thinking about my future plans, which doesn't exist. So for me, currently, like whatever I'm doing, I'm trying to understand it more. Like, he mentioned that going in depth, whether I'm liking it or not. And secondly, whether I'm good at it or not, whether I'm able to do it correctly or not. So these are the two questions I always ask, whether am I enjoying it and whether am I really good at it. And the best thing to know about something is to do it. So I did consulting for 1.5 years, which is not a very long tenure, I would say. And now currently I'm doing investing. So I would spend some time here, and if I continue liking it, maybe I can build my career in this.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, it's like trying new things, exploring new things. And then, maybe one day I can decide, okay, this is something which I'm really resonating with.
Correct.
And okay, that might be something. But from a broader picture, it's like I want to be part of something wherein I'm actually creating value and creating impact. Something, that becomes part of everyday life. Something that people will remember and something that would actually help people. I don't know what would it be, but yeah, that's like a broader idea in my mind. And it can be anything.
Got it. Understood. And a lot of, I think our seniors get a cultural shock when we say कि हम यहाँ पर 3-4 साल काम करना है and then we have to take a break. I was meeting a banker who was telling me कि he's worked in banking for 20 years and like continuous 20 years in the investment banking. And he was telling me कि one of the junior who 26, 27 years, he said कि बहुत हो गया banking, like 3-4 years of experience. Now I want to take a break. And for our seniors, that was never an option. Well, leaving a job was never an option. A lot of people get a culture, and plus, like a culture has everything in. A lot of people are moving towards entrepreneurship side. I think overall because of the starter ecosystem growing, anybody of you are thinking of whether you have a plan to start something of your own. Is there a future, maybe Mawadi bag? Maybe if you get an opportunity, want to. Got it. I think it's because everybody work with the promoters and the founders.
Yes.
When you look at them and the work, the wealth they have created, or whatever is motivation, like what they are doing, a lot of times you tend to move towards that direction.
Obviously, allure is there. The allure of entrepreneurship is there.
Correct. But it's not as easy. What do you understand? Got it. Okay, let's move to the fun part of the lightning round. I'll ask you a question. Whatever comes to your mind as to, you just have to answer. Sure. What's one thing that people are generally surprised to find out about you? Nandini.
Age.
Anything else?
Okay, when they see my LinkedIn and they count the number of years I worked in corporate, then laugh.
That's a great age.
Yeah, again.
But yeah. But okay. Mukund.
No, again, when they see the profile, they think that, everything's perfect. But then you tell them that that's never the case. Everyone has their own weaknesses, limitations. Very serious answer to one question.
Manthan, I'm expecting something funny from you.
Oh, there's no fun. But I think life beyond work also, I think. Maybe a lot of people think there's no life beyond work. There is some life still remaining. I think, there's some fun part to it.
Is that you stuck in traffic or?
Yeah, that's one part of it. I think active in sports, going out with friends and nothing.
Sure. Next question is, which series, TV series, or do you watch on loop?
Then I watched The Mentalist. There's one long TV series. I watched it once. It's like, I think 7 or 10 seasons, 14 episodes, or roughly one.
You keep watching it.
Episode. I watched it once completely. Then my sister was watching. I joined. Again, I watched completely. That's long. I was 50 minutes episodes. I think. Post that, I decided no long seasons. Maybe I just stick to shorter ones.
Anything for Mukund?
Yeah, not a big believer of watching things twice, but currently I'm watching this show called Ted Lasso.
I think I've heard.
Yeah, so I'm finding it good.
No series twice.
No series.
I have watched series, but not twice.
But what are you watching right now then?
Currently, I'm not watching anything. But before that, I completed all the 9 seasons of Suits. I've watched Money Heist.
9 seasons. Suits के 9 seasons हो गए.
Yeah.
मैं तो fourth के बाद.
I never
Six कर दिया था. तुम चाहते हो?
I completed all the series.
one thing you like about the job and one thing you hate.
I think novelty of job, because when you speak to a lot of promoters or founder, I think novelty is something that investment banking, I think that's the good part about it.
Hate is important.
Hate would be, I think, the expectations of creating work. I think that's been something, I think, a lot of other roles, but I think investment banking, because there's investment banking is a cyclical role, right? There would be periods when the deals flow would be very high, and then there would be periods when the deal flow would be lull period. Right. And then there are teams who actually create work out of nothing just to keep the business busy. Yeah, I think I've seen people around that. Luckily, I haven't been to that, but yeah, I think that's not a good, healthy sign for any organization.
Yeah, no, like the amount of things that you get to learn.
Correct.
While doing your day-to-day work, you get to learn a lot. That's a thing that I really like. Hate, I would say, fortunately, at my current company, people are really nice. But in general, when I look at the ecosystem, right, I think that you have to behave in a certain way to be an investor. People are not, say, the most real version of themselves, which is something that I don't like.
Do you have any policy of being a clean shave or something? No, I don't think so.
Yeah,
There's one.
there are funds.
Some funds who first told you have to be clean shaved every day.
You wouldn't have gone
I
to the interview only.
Nandini, for you?
So one thing that I really love about my current job is being in the position of investor. Like we have the funds, and then like we are the investor in that position. When
Power.
the
Power.
power.
That's why it's
Yeah,
sophisticated
we can ask a lot of questions, and then like every company is so happy to answer because anyway we are going to give funds. So that was not there in consulting, I would say, and even like in any profile. So we're like, yeah, the position, the state, the entire position in the equation that I really like about it. In terms of hate, it's been only 3 months.
3 months.
I
Consulting,
like to
what consulting?
Okay. So consulting, people call it as a fancy profile or fancy profession. You travel a lot, you eat a lot of bahar ka khana. But if I look at it in the long term or like a 30 or 40 feet view, I think it's not a healthy lifestyle. I mean, people can make it healthy if you choose to eat healthy food every time. But when you are traveling a lot and then you are binge eating, etc., it becomes unhealthy at a point of time. So for example, in one of my last cases, I was eating outside food a lot and then I had some health issues. So yeah, I think that's something we should actually point out.
Okay, next is, what's the most bizarre thing on your bucket list? Bizarre?
Not necessarily bizarre. For me, it's not. It would be like driving around the country, like take a break for 2 months and go for a road trip across India.
Yeah.
Mukund.
For me, it would be, if I have the ability that going ahead at least daily 2-3 hours of good sports. So either you have a tennis lawn that you can daily go to, that would be something.
Then we should go back to our hostel.
What, you had tennis? Well,
Not tennis, like some, yeah.
Yeah. No,
I think
something on my bucket list would be that I have a tennis court next to my house and I'm getting 2 to 3 hours to play daily.
okay, that's a good thing. I play tennis a lot, but 2-3 days in a week. Let's play.
Currently, I'm not playing.
No time.
Yeah, Mumbai monsoon, I think.
No, yeah, we figure out. Nandini, for you?
For me, it's like exploring 20-25 countries by next 8 to 10 years.
Wow.
Just go to Europe. Take
a break. I think your work will let you, like in the travel is there, like.
No, in work there is no
Can't
time, but
be
you
much.
have to plan.
Got it. Okay, next is, what is the most embarrassing message or email you have sent to maybe a wrong person or group? That would happen.
Or luckily, no. And
Yeah, so it happened in me. So one of my friend and one of my senior MDP in BCG, they share the same first name. And I chose the wrong email ID. I was sharing some training code, some training links, etc. And also there were some answers to it to my friend. And then I mistakenly...
What was those answers? ऐसा क्या लिख दिया?
Training cancers, yeah.
Okay. Complete the training.
Yeah, and then I chose the wrong email ID and I emailed.
Okay.
And then a friend messaged me, I haven't still gotten an email. Like, I just sent it. And then I checked my emails. Yeah, then I recalled.
Oh, you recalled it.
Yeah.
तो बच गए.
But
I have not thankfully done anything which I can recall. But Someone I know, what that person did is, when you share something on WhatsApp, right, and it was a confidential stuff that he was sharing. When you share something on WhatsApp, the first option that you get is my status. So he was sending that message to someone. He ended up uploading it as a status.
Okay. Next is, if you could have dinner with any one person, dead or alive, who would it be? Anything. Nandini, if you have any person in mind. Any film stars or maybe in the field you're working.
For me, it would be APJ Abdul Kalam. Whenever I watch his videos, I just get amazed by what kind of a human being was he. So yeah, I would say he would be the one.
Manthan.
The one name I can think of currently would be MS Dhoni. I think the tactics on the field, the person that he is, I think I would like to maybe catch up over dinner sometime.
For me, like, it keeps changing. But currently, like, on the reels, I'm getting a lot of reels by Priyanka Chopra. So the way she speaks about some motivational things about her career and all, that's very inspiring for me.
Got it. Okay, last question, which I asked to everyone here. What is success for you? Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. I think success for me would be ending the day and not feeling fatigued about what I did. I'm still looking forward to getting up the next day and do the same thing. I think if I can make my routine fun, I think that's success for me.
Wow, nice.
Doing justice to my potential and capabilities in the long run, in a manner wherein the value that I'm creating out of that potential, I've really done justice to that. And the value for others. For oneself, I think we all have done enough to get that value. What can you create for others to do justice to that?
All right.
For me, two things. One is like exercising my potential to its best. So, for example, I feel very bad when I think that, okay, I could have done it better. Or maybe, I have more capability to do something, but currently I'm not able to exercise those capabilities. So then I feel sad. So if I'm able to exercise all of my capabilities, it's success for me. And second is like, let's say I made a planner, or I say that, okay, this is something I want to do during the entire day, and I end up doing it. So this is like certain rule that I follow in my life, and at least that whatever I've done so far, it's because of this rule. So let's say if I have a to-do list, so I won't sleep before I complete that to-do list. So that's like a separate scope.
Does your to-do list have only the tasks which are required to be done in that day, or some?
No, every day.
The tasks for the day you would have in the.
So if you complete, then you're happy.
Yeah, like I'm not so sticky that I want to do this task between 6 to 7, but it's like by the end of it.
So has there been a day where you have not slept?
It does happen.
Wow. That's a commitment. Oh, okay. So that's where we end. Thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about the work and other aspects of the life. Thank you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you for us.
Thanks, Siddhant, for having us in such a nice setup.
Yeah.
And thank you, GetVantage. I think I requested Bhavik, founder and CEO of GetVantage, to allow us to record in this. So thank you, Bhavik, so much. He's not there, but I think it will reach out to him. Thank you.